This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
We're going to learn something very interesting. If you remember, all the way at the end of Masechta Hariyos, we had a very interesting Maisa with Rav Shimon Gamliel. Rav Shimon Gamliel, we know, was the Nasi. And Rav Shimon Gamliel made a takana. And the takana was that when the Nasi walks in the room, everyone has to stand up to full height. When the Av Bezdin walks in the room, they make one row. In other words, the row he's walking down, you have one row on one side stands up, one row on the other side stands up, and that's it. And then when the Gadol Hadar walks in, right, they do the wave, we said, right? One at a time. As he's walking by, each person gets up, gets up, gets up, gets up. So the Gemara tells us, what's the history of this takana? Basically what happened was, there were three Tanoim. We have Rav Shimon Gamliel, who was the Nasi. We have Rav Nassan, who was the Av Bezdin. By the way, Rav Nassan was also the son of the Reish Galusa in Bavel. And Rav Meir, who was the Gadol Hadar. And they all walked into the Beis Medrash, one after one, right? Rav Shimon Gamliel walked in, everyone stood up. Rav Nassan walked in, everyone stood up. Rav Meir walked in, everyone stood up. So Rav Shimon Gamliel didn't like what was going on. He said, there's no hecker between me and everyone else. Very nice you're an Av Bezdin, very nice you're the Gadol Hadar, but I'm the Nasi. And we know, Rabbi say, very important, the policy of the Nasius was, remember, Rebbe, who was the grandson of Ram Gamliel, and the son of Shimon Gamliel. Rebbe told his son the following on his deathbed. Right? The Gemara in Kesubah says, Daf Kuf Gimel Mebeis, Nahaig Nisiyascha Biramim. In other words, the way you conduct yourself as Nasi has to be with pomp and ceremony. On the outside, the way it has to look to other people is, you have to conduct it with a certain authority. That was the policy of this house, of the bias of the Nasias. So very interesting, the Gemara says that Shimon Gamliel didn't like the fact that everyone was standing up for everyone, right? Not just him. So he made a takana conveniently on the next day when Rav Meir and Rav Nassan weren't there, and the takana was, you want to stand up, you could stand up for me. But when Rav Meir walks in, when Rav Nassan walks in, when Rav Nassan walks in, one row, two rows on each side, right? One row on each side. When Rav Meir walks in, only one at a time. So Kach Hava the next day, Shimon Gamliel walks in, everyone stands up. Rav Nassan walks in, one row, one row. Rav Meir walks in, one at a time. So Rav Meir and Shimon Gamliel said, what's going on over here? What? Rav Meir and Rav Nassan said, what's going on? So they were told that yesterday when they weren't there, Shimon Gamliel made a new takana. So they said, we're going to get him back. What he did to us, we're going to get back at him. We know that Rav Shimon Gamliel doesn't know what? Uktzin, right? He's not a master in the last Masechta in Shas. He doesn't know Uktzin. And therefore, since they darshaned that the only type of person who's allowed to teach Torah publicly is someone who knows Kol HaTorah Kula, so since Rav Shimon Gamliel did not know Kol HaTorah Kula, we're going to ask him a kasha in Uktzin. He's not going to know the answer, and we're going to get rid of him. So that was the plan. The Gemara said what? There was a Tana who overheard the plan. Who was it? Rabbi Yaakov ben Karshi. He was afraid Rav Shimon Gamliel would be embarrassed, so he takes out his Mishnayos Uktzin. He starts chazering Uktzin in the presence of Rav Shimon Gamliel. He says it again and again and again and again. Rav Shimon Gamliel says, what's going on? Why is this Tana chazering over Uktzin? It must be, we're going to have trouble with Uktzin tomorrow. So he makes sure to learn Uktzin that night. The next day he walks into the Beis Medrash. Rav Meir and Rav Nassan have a kasha. They say, no, tell me something about Uktzin. So Shimon Gamliel says the whole Masechta Baal Peh, and when he finishes, he says, and if I wouldn't have learned it yesterday, I really would have been embarrassed. And then he said, you try to embarrass me, you're out. He expelled them from the Beis Medrash, right? And the Gemara says, they were on the outside, everyone was learning on the inside, but they were the greatest Talmidei Chachamim. So they threw in the kashas into the Beis Medrash. Whatever the Talmidim knew how to answer, they answered. Whatever they didn't know how to answer, so Rav Meir and Rav Nassan threw the answer into the Beis Medrash. Then Rabbi Yossi says, what's going on? Anu! Mi b'fnim, b'tara mi b'chutz. What are we doing on the inside? The outside, that's where the action is. The Talmidei Chacham are on the outside. So they pleaded to Rav Shimon Gamliel, and finally Rav Shimon Gamliel allowed Rav Meir and Rav Nassan back into the Beis Medrash, but he made another takon. And that is, whenever you say over a Torah in the name of Rav Meir and Rav Nassan, in the name of Rav Meir, you have to say Acherim Amru. You can't quote Rav Meir by name. And whenever you quote in the name of Rav Nassan, it's Yesh Shomrim. Okay? That's the first story. Next generation. Who is the son of Shimon Gamliel? Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi is teaching his son, Reb Shimon, the grandson of Reb Shimon Gamliel. He's teaching him Torah, and he says over, Acherim Amrim, right? Others say. So Reb Shimon says, who are these Acherim? Who are these Acherim? Shemeimeim anu shaisim ushmaiseim einanu maskirin. Who are these Acherim? We learn their Torah, we don't say their names. So Rabbi says, who are they? These are people who are trying to be oiker, the covet of our mishpacha. So Reb Shimon says, come on, the machlokes is over, they're dead already. Rav Meir was no longer alive. Reb Shimon Gamliel was Rav Meir wasn't alive. Rav Nassan wasn't alive. So Rebbe conceded. Rebbe said, fine, we'll say over Torah in their name, but not exactly. Instead of saying Rav Meir Amru, what are we going to say? Amru b'shem Rav Meir. Says the Gemara, even though Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi was an Anav, nevertheless, he was not Meichel on the covet of the Nesius, and he still did not say over Torah in the name of Rav Meir. Okay. So that's the story. Rav Shimon Gamliel was the Nasi. By the way, Rav Shimon Gamliel was also, out of all of the Midas of Rav Shimon Gamliel in Shas, if you look throughout Shas, which Midah is Rav Shimon Gamliel known for? We don't find too many comments on the character of Shimon Gamliel. There is one Gemara in Shas about what Rav Shimon Gamliel was like. Bava Metzia, Pei Daled, the Gemara says Rav Shimon Gamliel was one of the all-time greatest Anavim. The Gemara says on the end of Pei Daled Amud Beis, Gimel and V'sanan. There were three people who were Anavim in history. One of them was Rav Shimon Gamliel. So this Rav Shimon Gamliel, who kicks Rav Meir and Rav Nassan out of the Beis Medrash, he was known as one of the greatest Anavim of all time.
The other two?
Rebbe, what?
The other two?
Look in, it's on Pei Hey. No, it's not.
How much?
It's not listed over there. It's not listed. Who else? Right? The next generation, Rebbe. Rebbe is not Moichel on the covet of the Nesias, right? He will not say over Torah in the name of Rav Meir, and yet the Mishnah says in Saita, Mishameis Rebbe, Bat La'anava. Okay. So now we come to another very interesting Gemara. This is, I believe, tomorrow's daf. In Brachas Chav Zayin Amud Beis, and we're gonna veer off a little bit. The Gemara says in Brachas, that's what you have on your sheet. Tan Rabbanan. Ma'isa b'talmid echad shaba l'fnei Rabbi Yeshua. Student came before Rabbi Yeshua. Now Rabbi Yeshua, in his time, he was the Chacham. He was the Gadol Hadar. He was the Av Bezdin. And the Shaila they asked Rabbi Yeshua was, Amarle, Tfilas Arvis Rishus, Aychayva. Right? Is Marav a Rishus or is Marav a Chiyuv? Is it optional or mandatory? Right? Don't get excited. What does it mean, Tfilas Arvis Rishus? Tfilas Arvis Rishus does not mean optional. Taisva says over there that Rishus means that if you have a mitzvah Iveris, you have a mitzvah that comes up, that can't wait. So then Marav is a Rishus that you do the mitzvah and you don't daven the Marav. But Avad, if you don't have anything pressing, Marav is a Chiyuv. The only other element of Marav being a Rishus is that you don't say Chazor Sashatz by Marav.
But also Mincha is the same.
No, Mincha is a Chayva.
But if there is a mitzvah of...
Mitzvah Iveris?
But Rabbi Yeshua held that you bring the tefillot for the korbanot. And if you don't bring a korban...
That's what Taisva said. What?
We just studied today that Rabbi Yeshua was holding that the tefillot are for the korbanot, not for the avot.
Okay, that's why Marav is a Rishus. Because since it's Keneged Hektar Ivarim U'Kedarim, right, there's no carbon. Yeah.
So since Marav is a chov now, it doesn't no longer apply.
No, the whole thing.
Even if something else.
No, even if it's Rishus, it's still an obligation. Marav is still an obligation.
Except if something else comes up.
Except if something comes up. Yeah.
But now that it's chov, even if something else comes up.
It depends what it is. It depends what it is. Yeah. Okay. So that's the story. Rabbi Shua said, Amar le Rishus, Ba lefnei Ram Gamliel. They came before Ram Gamliel. Now Ram Gamliel was who? Gamliel was the Nasi. Now Ram Gamliel was the grandfather of Rebbe, the father of Reb Shimon Gamliel that we just learned in Harius. Now you have to understand, this is in the aftermath of the story where the Gemara in Bava Metzia on Nun Tes talks about Rabbi Yeshua. Who was Rabbi Yeshua's best friend? Rabbi Yeshua's best friend was Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkinus. Rabbi Lezer ben Horkinus and Rabbi Yeshua were very close. And there's a certain shiloh that came up about tanor shel achnoi, a certain kind of oven. And what happened? Rabbi Lezer ben Horkinus paskind tahar. Roiv of the Chachamim paskind tameh. We follow the Roiv. Rabbi Lezer held that the yeshiva had not sufficiently convened in the aftermath of the Chumash Beis HaMikdash, and therefore he held that Roiv does not apply to that situation. B'kitzur, what happened? Right? Ram Gamliel, because what happened? Rabbi Lezer paskin tahar, the Chachamim paskin tameh, and they were forced to put Rabbi Lezer ben Horkinus into Cherem. Okay? Lezer ben Horkinus is either number 1 or number 2, Gadol Hadar. They're forced to put him into Cherem. That's why he's called Shemuti. Right? They were forced to put him into Cherem. His sister, the wife of Rabbi Lezer ben Horkinus, is the sister of Ram Gamliel. Ram Gamliel's sister is married to Rabbi Lezer ben Horkinus. Her name was Ima Shalom. Right? What was her main job in life? To make sure Rabbi Lezer ben Horkinus did not say Tachnon. Because she was afraid if he would say Tachnon, he would have in mind Ram Gamliel, and that would be the end of Ram Gamliel. By the way, they say if asked, what do you mean make sure he doesn't say Tachnon? What, she's standing over him 24 hours a day? Don't say Tachnon, don't say Tachnon? Well, what does that mean? He'll go crazy. Right? So it means, the Beis Yosef writes, what she would do was, she was mafsik him between Shemona Esrei and Tachnon, and the effectiveness of Tachnon is only if you're not mafsik between Shemona Esrei and Tachnon, because Tachnon is what we call Tefillah Arichta. It's a long tefillah with Shemona Esrei. One day, she thought it was Rosh Chodesh, it was the miscommunication. He ended up saying the Tachnon, and Ram Gamliel was done. Ram Gamliel was finished. Okay? That's the story. But this is in the aftermath of just having put Rabbi Lezer ben Horkinus into Cherem. Okay? Before he was put in Cherem, they were a tandem, Rabbi Yoshua and Rabbi Lezer ben Horkinus. They used to travel to Rome, right, to intercede with the government. In fact, one time when they went to Rome, they picked up a nice convert by the name of Onkelos. Onkelos was converted by Rabbi Lezer ben Horkinus and Rabbi Yeshua when they went to Rome. That is why the Gemara says in Megillah on Daf Gimel, Onkelos wrote the Targum under the direction of Rabbi Yeshua and Rabbi Lezer ben Horkinus. Okay, you'll see where we're going. So that was the shad. They asked Rabbi Yeshua, Tfilas Arvis is Rishus, or is Tfilas Arvis Chayva? So that Rabbi Yeshua said Rishus, Balaf Neim Gamliel, Amar Lei, Tfilas Arvis, Rishus Chayva, Amar Lei, Chayva. Amar Lei, so the Talmud said, B'halei Rabbi Yeshua, Amar Lei, Rishus. Rabbi Yeshua told me it's a Rishus. So what are you telling me, Ram Gamliel, it's a Chayva? By the way, Rabbi Yeshua was, in learning, he was considered perhaps greater than Ram Gamliel. The only thing is Ram Gamliel held the position of the Siyas. So Ram Gamliel said the following. Amar Lei, Hamtein ad sheyichnesu balei treisen lebeis hamedrash. Let us wait until the balei treisen enter the Beis Medrash. Let's wait for the students to come. Okay? What we're going to discuss today is briefly this terminology. What does it mean, balei treisen? What does it mean? Why are Talmidei Chachamim called balei treisen, shield bearers? Right? After all, we'll take a look at Rashi. Rashi says, look at number 11, the last Maramakam on the sheet. Rashi Masechta B'chayros. By the way, this was the first time that Ram Gamliel got into trouble. The Gemara in B'chayros is talking about that we know that a B'char belongs to a Kayin. It has to be offered unless the B'char develops a mum. Right? But what if the Kayin intentionally puts the mum into the animal? It's not his anymore, right? He loses. Right? So, if somebody what if the mum came accidentally? Then the Kayin gets it and he could eat it, right? It's not kachim. What if the Kayin comes into Bez and says, look, it has a mum, but I didn't do it? Can we trust the Kayin to say, I didn't do it, b'mezid? We don't trust the Kayin. No, but Reb Tzadok HaKayin, not to be confused with the Baal Machshor Reb Tzadok HaKayin 100 years ago, Reb Tzadok HaKayin, he came in, he said, look, the animal has a mum, but I didn't do it. Ram Gamliel said, we can't believe him. Rabbi Yeshua said, what's the problem? He's an honest guy. We can trust Reb Tzadok HaKayin that he didn't intentionally put the mum into the behemoth. So Ram Gamliel didn't like the fact that Rabbi Yeshua argued on him. So Ram Gamliel, when Rabbi Yeshua spoke, he stood up. Ram Gamliel did not give him reshus to sit. And the way things worked was, when you're standing in the presence of the Nasi, you couldn't sit unless he said, Shev. So people did not like that, right? People were mumbling, that Ram Gamliel does not respect Rabbi Yeshua. So Rashi over there in Masechta B'chayra says, what does it mean, Balei Tresin? Meginim, shield bearers. They have a shield. What do they need a shield for? Right, when was the last time you walked into yeshiva and you saw the Talmidim holding a shield? So Rashi says, no, it's just a mashal. Talmidei chachamim hanilchamim b'melchamta shel Torah. It's just an allegory. The Talmidei chacham, when they learn, they're engaged in melchamta shel Torah. So I mean, they're called shield bearers, right? They're fighting. They're warriors. They're warriors. So I ask you a question. You like the question? You don't like the question? If the reason they're called shield bearers is because they engage in melchamta shel Torah, so we should call them balei ramachim. Right? Spear bearers. Bali Charovim. Vas Epis, the shield. Right? Melchamta shel Torah is what? Kasha and Teretz. Which one comes first? First, you have the Kasha. Right? They're warriors. Nasum Oivim Zalazeh. Right? Why Dafka the shield? So Tosa Rosh says, look at this in number 10. Tosa Rosh says, Hamaginim al Hadar. You know why they're called shield bearers? They protect the generation. Right? They're protecting us. In the schus of the Torah, they're protecting Klal Yisrael. We're going to look into another possible explanation for why the Talmidei Chachamim are called shield bearers. Balei Tresim. The Gemara says in Be'ah, look at number 2. Rabbi Abba, who knows where Rabbi Abba lived? Rabbi Abba started off in Bavel. If anyone remembers the daf on, what's today, Chav Vav? What's today, Chav Vav? Chav Vav. So Shabbos is daf, Chav Dalet, yeah? Rabbi Abba, the Gemara says, Chav Dalet Amud Beis. Who did Rabbi Abba try to avoid? Rabbi Abba, there was one Amoira, Rabbi Abba couldn't, he did not want to be near Rabbi Yehuda. Why? Because Rabbi Yehuda told him, you're not allowed to leave Bavel.
He didn't tell him, he told in general.
The Gemara says he told. The Gemara says on Chav Dalet Amud Beis that Rabbi Abba avoided Rabbi Yehuda. Why did Rabbi Abba have a kamishtam in Rabbi Yehuda? Why? To have a kaboy l'meisek la'Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Abba wanted to go to Eretz Yisrael. And what did Rabbi Yehuda hold about Eretz Yisrael? Amar Rabbi Yehuda, kol ha'oila mi Bavel Eretz Yisrael oiver ba'aseh. Shenever Bavel yuvo v'shama yu. Rabbi Abba held that if you go, Rabbi Yehuda held if you go up to Eretz Yisrael, you're over a mitzvah, you're over a midivrei neviim and aseh, that you're not allowed to leave Bavel. Right? What did Rabbi Yehuda hold? Excuse me, what did Rabbi Abba hold? Rabbi Abba held that was going on the Klei HaMikdash, that the Klei HaMikdash have to stay in Bavel until Mashiach comes.
Also Bayit Rishon.
What?
It was after Bayit Rishon, not after Bayit Sheni.
Yeah, but they held it continued, right? It was a prophecy forever.
What about Ezra? Told them to come back.
What?
Ezra Chemia told everybody to come back, and they didn't come back, and they were all okay. They were constant for that. Yeah.
Okay, that's a big kasha, right? That's a big kasha. That's a big kasha.
Lots of kashas on this.
In any event, ultimately Rabbi Abba snuck out. He made it to Eretz Yisrael. Look in the Gemara in Be'ah. The Gemara in Be'ah says, number 2, Kisalik Rabbi Abba, Amar, he said the following. Rabbi Abba was leaving Eretz Yisrael, he's leaving Bavel. In Bavel, everyone knew Rabbi Abba. Rabbi Abba was very respected, everyone accepted his opinion, and he was worried he was going to come to Eretz Yisrael, maybe they're not going to be goyrus him. Who says they're going to give him the same respect that he had in Bavel? So he said a tefillah. Amar, Yehi Rava, De'ema, Milsa, Tetiskabel. It should be the will of Hashem that I should say things that will be accepted. You ever hear, sometimes the Rav, before the Shabbos Haggadah Josh, he gets up, he says, Yehi Rava, De'ema, Milsa, Tetiskabel. Yeah? Okay. Kisalik, never heard that?
To go to his
Kisalik, when he gets to Eretz Yisrael, Ashkechel Rabbi Yochanan, right? He sees the big guns in Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Chanina Bar Papi, Rabbi Zera, V'amri La, some say Rabbi Avo, Rabbi Shem Ben Pazi, Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha, V'yasvi V'ka'amri, and they're saying the following: Amai, why v'livato ma'imu melach legabe Isa? It's talking about Dinei Erev Tchumim, that if the water and the salt of one person are in the dough of someone else, so then it is not kind of shvisa where the dough is. Instead, it maintains its identity, and it's kind of shvisa wherever it is. It's not batal into the dough. So and they asked the kasha, why? These Amoraim in Eretz Yisrael asked, the water and the salt should be batal to the dough. Amar lahu Rabbi Abba, what's the problem? Haresh nesarvle kav chitin, ba'asara kav and chitin shachaver yoichal. Hala? V'chadi? Rabbi Abba said, what do you mean it should become batal? So I have a great eitzah. If your food falls into my food, right? I could eat it because it's batal. It's not batal. In dinei mamanois, you don't say bittul. Bittul is a din of isser v'heter. If isser falls into heter, so batal b'roiv. But you don't say in dinei mamanois batal b'roiv. And since dinei tchumin is a din in shvisas makim, it's a din in ownership. There's no din in bittul by tchumin. So what was the reaction?
What's an Isser?
What?
Din of Shabbos is an Isser.
Okay, so back and forth. I'm not going to get involved into this part, but listen to what the Gemara says. Achichu alei. They laughed at Rabbi Abba. How ridiculous far is that? They laughed at him. Amar lahu, Rabbi Abba said, what's the problem? Did I take your pants or something? Am I wearing your socks? What? He said, Amar lahu, goltichu shakli. Am I wearing your pants that you're laughing at me? What are you laughing at me? So they thought that joke was so foolish, they laughed at him even more. Maybe that was funny in Bavel. Maybe in Bavel, the Babylonians, they like that kind of humor. But that's, in Eretz Yisrael, we don't, what are you talking about? They laughed at him more. Yeah, what kind of joke is that? Right? It's a Hungarian joke? It's not funny. So Chassam Sofer wants to know, and then the Gemara goes on to say, they did good by laughing at him, and the Gemara goes on to say why halachically they didn't accept what Rabbi Abba said. Ask the Chassam Sofer in a tshuva. Now this isn't a famous tshuva. This is in tshuva Siman Reish Ches in Archaim, where the Chassam Sofer addresses the tshuva to the Maritz Chios. And the Chassam Sofer wants to know, why does the Gemara have to tell us that they made fun of Rabbi Abba? I need to know that. So who needs to know that? They didn't agree with him, so say Rabbi Abba gave this to us. And they said that they had a kash on it. Where else in Shas do you find, Abayi said a svara, and you know what Rava said? We have to know exactly how many times one Amora laughed at the, who cares? Just say, kash and teretz. We do not find elsewhere in Shas a whole record of, one Tana says, one Amora says one thing, and the other one, first he laughs at him, he thinks he's a joker, and then he explains why. What do I need to know that for? Take a look in the Chuvas Chassam Sofer number 7. Umargala b'pumi. Says Chassam Sofer, this is not just something I thought of, this is something I have accustomed myself to say. Margala b'pumi. Soif Perek Meshilin, at the end of Perek Meshilin, and Be'er Kedesalik, Rabbi Abba, Achichu Allah, Amar. They laughed at Rabbi Abba, so he said, Go tichu kashaka, I took your pants, Hagar Achichu Allah. V'shov Omri, Shaper Achichu Allah. Ma Ratzu Chazal L'Saper B'Bizyoiner Shel Rabbi Abba. Why do Chazal see to it that we have to make fun of Rabbi Abba? We have to know that in Eretz Yisrael they laughed at him. Have a matzah l'mishkol l'mitri. B'li sipur halagazah. The Gemara could say over the shakla v'tarya without the insult they gave to Rabbi Abba. Ach musar haskel nishma mizeh. Says Chassam Sofer, we learn from here a tremendous musar. Yan kisalik Rabbi Abba, because when Rabbi Abba went up to Eretz Yisrael, his spalel he davened. Yehei rava de'ema milsa de tiskabel. It should be the will of Hashem that I should say things that should be accepted. Says Chassam Sofer, what's wrong with that tefillah? Right? We know when you come into the Beis Medrash, you're supposed to say a tefillah. What tefillah are you supposed to say? Reb Nechuni ben Akana, right? Shelo eikasho b'dvar halacha v'yismechu b'chaverei. I shouldn't stumble on halacha, and my chaverim should rejoice. So we see from there that it's proper to daven, that you should get to the right conclusion. Says Chassam Sofer, ve'ein zeh doimel letfilas. I don't know why he has reish chayra. It should be Reb Nechuni ben Akana. This is not similar to the tefillah of Reb Nechuni ben Akana. Look at number 3. Right? The Gemara in Brachos. Reb Nechuni ben Akana yimisfalel. B'knisasai l'beis hamedrash u'v'yitziyasai tefillah ketzara amru lai. The Talmidim said, "Ma makam l'tefillah zu?" Amr lahem b'knisasi ani mispalo shelo yera dvar ta'kal al yadi. Right? This is Brachos Chavches. Right? Wednesday's that. Look, the Gemara says further. Taner Abanon b'knisasai ma'omer yiratzai milfanech Hashem laikai shelo yera dvar ta'kal al yadi v'lo yikasho b'dvar halacha v'yismechu b'chaver. So Chassam Sofer says, what was wrong with Rabbi Abba's tefillah? Isn't this the tefillah that Chazal were masaking? Says Chasam Sofer, Ein zeh doimeh letfilas. Rem Nechoni ben HaKana shelo akasha v'dvar halacha v'yismuchi b'chaberei. Aval hu Yisra
more.
Asa. He did more. Sheyomar milsa de tiskabel. He didn't say I shouldn't make a mistake. What did he say? I should be correct that the other people accept my opinion. What kind of tefillah is that? You should daven that your friend should accept your opinion? What do you care if your friend accepts your opinion? As long as you're doing the right thing. You have to make it that you win the argument and he accepts what you have to say. If you want to daven that you should not stumble and you should get to the right conclusion, beautiful tefillah. But you should, to daven, the people should accept what you're saying? What do you care? There's no inyan that when you're speaking, people should accept what you're saying. It's irrelevant. Says Chasam Sofer, who cares if people accept what you're saying? Emar dvarecha l'shem shamayim. Just say what you got to say l'shem shamayim, and Hashem will take care of the rest. If people accept it, good, and if they don't accept it, fine. V'al kochach nichshal. V'al kain, thank you. Therefore, nichshal, he stumbled. He said an improper tefillah. D'mechacho al kol dvarav. And they laughed at everything he said. In other words, Rabbi Abba davened, not only should I not make a mistake, but what? They should accept my opinion? Hashem said, what kind of tefillah is that? Not only are they not going to accept your opinion, they're going to laugh at you. This is improper tefillah. Look what the Chasam Sofer says. And through this I explain the following pasuk. Look at the pasuk in Mishpatim in number 6. It says, Loisia acharei rabim l'ra'is. Don't follow the majority to do bad. V'loisane ariv lintais acharei rabim lahatas. Listen to how the Chasam Sofer reads this pasuk. It says, "Ba'derech zeh ani mefarish loisane ariv lintais." Don't get involved in a machlokes lintais. You know what lintais means? Right. You want to turn his opinion into your opinion. Anytime you're having a discussion with someone and your objective is that you want him to agree with you, that's Torah saying don't do that. Loisana ariv lintais. Don't get into a riv lintais to turn his opinion to yours. Shelo yiu kavanas hamizvachim bedin bein riv lariv uvein dam ladam lintais das chaver l'daita. You should have no agenda to try to get another person to agree to you. Ki ma livelai echi avikuch. What do you care what the outcome is going to be? Aren't you only arguing the shem shamayim to get to the bottom? Right? You want to know what's the emes. Right? Kimali v'loy echi avikuach lahametz farasay v'daiti al pisichli ba'ofen ma'ash chaver ta negdi era v'machshavti im kain midvarav echserbi. I'll see if what he's saying makes sense. I'll retract. V'im loy nirim li dvarai ani oimen al daiti. If I don't understand what he's saying, then I'll maintain my position. Umali b'kachem yoyda li. It should be completely irrelevant to a person. When a person is having a discussion, an argument in halacha, whether that person is going to agree to you or not. Your job is, a person's agenda should be, I am having a machlokes to get halacha to emes ha'amita. Right? Whether the outcome is going to be, he's going to agree to me, or I'm going to agree to him, it's irrelevant, it's not important. Loisane ariv lintais. The objective should not be lintais. Ki ein kavanasi lintais daitoi l'daiti. My objective is not to turn his das into my das. That's what I want my friend to do. I don't want him to try to convince me. I want him to come to his correct conclusion. And then when everyone comes to what they think is the best decision, what are we going to do? Acharei rabim lahatais. That's what the pasuk means. Loisane ariv. Don't get involved in machlokes lintais that I should convince you, he should convince. No one needs to convince anybody. There's no convincing needed. You try to delve into the sugya as best as possible. Everyone will formulate their opinion, and then what do? You follow the Rav.
So why Rabbi Gamliel stood up Yeshua all this time? I mean, he disagreed with them.
Oh.
Like he punished them.
Okay.
He wants them to go after his opinion.
He's a Nasi.
Why he puts them standing up in front of everybody?
Okay. Good question.
What was your question?
He wants to know, what did Ram Gamliel? Did Ram Gamliel know Tshuva Reish Ches? Maybe, we'll see. Look what he says. People who are involved in machlokes, that they dafka want their friend to agree to them, The kavanasei lahatos das chaveru l'daitoi, and their kavana is to turn the das of their friend to his das. Oisam shoygim miderech ha'emes. These people are turning away from the truth. The noitim el hanitzuach. What's nitzuach? Nitzuach is they're just it's like a competition. It's a sport, right? It's a baseball game. Who's going to win? If your job is, if you're going involved in a dispute because you want to convince somebody, you're not going to get to the bottom line. V'yetza mishpat me'ukal, and you're going to end up with a perverted outcome. Yasach Sam Sofer is, but we daven every day. Listen to this. We daven Shaloye Kasha B'dvar Halacha V'yismachu Bi Chaveri. We're davening. I shouldn't make a mistake, and my friend is going to rejoice when what? When he corrects me. So what do we see from here? That in the Beis Medrash there is an element of people correcting each other. Says the Chassam Sofer, no, we don't understand the tefillah. The tefillah of Shalom Kasha B'dvar Halacha V'yismu Bi Chaveri is a completely different tefillah. What's the tefillah? He says like this. He says, "V'gam b'tefillah sem Nechoni ben Akana Shalom Kasha B'dvar Halacha V'yismu Bi Chaveri Loi Mairi." We're not talking about. You think Rav Nechoni ben Akana was worried that they're going to be at Tanoim who are going to mock him and be happy when he makes a mistake? You think among in the Beis Medrash of Tanoim you can have Tanoim Chas v'Shalom who they're happy when Rav Nechoni ben Akana makes a mistake? No, that's not what he means. He says, you didn't have people like this in the Chabur of Chazal where somebody would rejoice when another Tana made a mistake. And says why was he not concerned for the mistake, making a mistake in halacha? He's only concerned that his friends should not rejoice over him. Says Chassam Sofer, listen to this. There's another Gemara. Gemara in Baba Basra. On Daf Kuf Lamed Gimel Amud Beis, look at number 4. The Gemara says, listen to this Gemara. Hahuda Amar Leila Chavre, someone came over to his friend, and he said, Nichsi Lecha, first I want you to be my Yarish, V'acharecha Leploini, and after you Yarshin, I want someone else to Yarshin. Now, let's go. How could you do that? Once someone Yarshins it, it's his, and after he dies, it goes to his heirs. But this is what a person said. I want you to be my Yarish, and after you Yarshin it, someone else will get it.
So maybe it's not a Yarish.
Maybe he doesn't have no family.
No, this was a t'nai he made in the Yerusha. He's being masna.
And he doesn't feel accepted.
V'rishon roi liyarshe hava. V'rishon roi liyarshe. The first guy was fit to Yarshin. Okay, so he Yarshin. Have a shachav rishon. Now the first guy died, so we have a big machlekes now. Because the Yarshim of the first guy, they say, we want a Yarshin. The second guy says, no, he made a Tanai, I'm next. So also Sheni Katava. Savar Rav Elish Kamei de Rav Lameimar Sheni Nami Shakal. You know, Rav Elish said, compromise. Right? Yeah, when you don't know what to do, you compromise, right? We'll split it. The Yarshim of the first guy, we'll split it with the second guy. Amrale. So Rava said, Dayani de Chatzatzta Hachi Dayani. Dayanim who compromise, that's what they do. You know, when you don't know the halacha, you don't know, you ask somebody, Dinei Mamres, they don't know what to do, split it. Yeah, you don't know anything better, you don't know the halacha, so you say split it. So he said, isn't this the exact case that the Gemara spoke about earlier? And the Gemara says what to do? So what did Rava say? Kari alei ani Hashem beita achishana. Yeah, Rava. Yeah, Rav Elish was embarrassed. So says Rashi, Kara alav Rava. Rava said the following pasuk to console Rav Elish. Kara alav Rava l'nachamoy. Rava said to Rav Elish to console him, Ani Hashem, I am God beita achishana. I come in the nick of time, right? I come right at the right time, right at the exact moment. When a tzaddik needs a salvation, HaKadosh Baruch Hu mamtzia lahem, Hashem finds them the salvation immediately, at the last second. In other words, the way the Derech Hashem works with tzaddikim is that when a tzaddik's in a jam, Hashem comes just right at the right moment. He comes and he saves them. So that's what Rava says to Rabbi Elish. He says, Afata, Ani yoidea b'cha shemei olam loy bastin takal al yadcha. I know about you, Rav says to Rav Elish, that you never make a mistake. You see, Rav Elish, Chassam Sofer explains, Rav Elish, he's very depressed. Because what does Rav Elish think? He thinks Rava thinks about him that he doesn't know what he's talking about. Because here Rava gives a psak, and he got the wrong psak, right? And Rav Elish has to correct him. So Rav Elish thinks that Rava thinks about him that he doesn't know what he's doing. He's not a good dayan. So Rava says just the opposite. I think you're a wonderful dayan. And the raya is, because even in a situation where you're about to make a mistake, Hashem sent you the right halacha, b'siyata d'shmaya at the last moment, to guide you in the right path. So Rabbi says to Rabbi Yish, no, fakir, I think lowly of you, I think very highly of you, because I see the tremendous siyata d'shmaya that you have, that at the last moment, Hashem sent a special agent to save you.
Well, what was the mistake of Rav Elish?
No, Rav Elish got the wrong side. They shouldn't have made a compromise. The Gemara says earlier on Kuflam and Gimel Amen Aleph, what the correct halacha should be with the Yarshim. Without getting into the pratim of that. But Rav was saying, look what he says. He says, Af ata ani yoidea b'cha me'shemei olam laibas din takala al yadcha. I know you'll never make a mistake. Sharei achshav, because in this instance, zimimanani li hakadosh baruch hu kaidem sheigata l'hayra v'lo nechshalta. Hashem prepared me, set me aside for you, so you shouldn't make a mistake. Says the Chassam Sofer, when Rava came in and saved Rav Elish at the last moment, what was Rava feeling? Was he happy or was he sad? He was very happy. He was overjoyed that he's able to give Rav Elish the correct psak, not because he's mocking him or putting him down, because he was zoicha to be the instrument through which the correct halacha was brought down to this world. Says the Chassam Sofer, the tefillah of shaloi kasha b'dvar halacha, we're not davening that I shouldn't make a mistake and my friend's gonna, make faces at me, ha ha ha, you don't know what you're talking about. That's not the tefillah. The tefillah is, I shouldn't make a mistake and Hashem should need to send me, b'derech nes, another Tana, to correct me and bring me in the right path. And he'll be happy that he was sent as the shliach to correct me. No. The tefillah is, it's much better, it's more ideal that the person himself should come to the correct conclusion and Hashem shouldn't have to send someone to correct him, and that person will have the simcha that he was able to be the instrument through which the halacha was brought down. So Chassam Sofer says, look 4 lines from the bottom of number 7. Avol nirle aneas daiti. Apima de Isa, Perek, Yayin Esech, Kuf Lamed Gimel Lamed Beis. Yayin Yashan. Yeah? Ani Hashem b'itach yishana, Perish Rashbam. Ichsif Rav Elish, me Rava. Rav Elish was upset. Rav Elish was embarrassed. Penyoy me Rava b'liboy. Rava was going to say to himself, Ilu hayisi b'kan hayadan din sheker. Kara alav Rava l'nachamoy. Rava called to him to console him. Ani Hashem b'itach yishana. Be'isha tzadikim tzrichum yishua HaKadosh Baruch Hu mamtzil lahem af ata. Ani yodea b'cha. I know about you. Shemay olam le'bas din takal yadcha sharei achshav zeminani li HaKadosh Baruch Hu kaidem shehigata l'hayra v'lo nechshalta. Harei, says the Chassam Sofer, what do we see from here? Sheharav Elish kemat nichshal. Rav Elish almost made a mistake. VaHaKadosh Baruch Hu hizmin lai Rava. Hashem sent Rava his way. V'hayasimcha l'Rava. Rava was overjoyed. Shezach l'hatza Rav Elish. Right? That he was Zoicha to save Rav Elish. Rava wasn't happy because of his friend's downfall. Rava was happy that he was Zoicha to save Rav Elish. But the Yoser Taif Hayil Rav Elish, Ilu Zikah HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Sheyamad Ala Emes Me'atzmai. Rav Elish would have been better off if he would have came to the correct conclusion by himself without having Rava have to correct him. V'lo yitzarech ma'azmanas Rav Latzila, v'sheyismach Rava b'mitzvasai. The tefillah, the yismachu b'yichaveri, is not my friend's going to rejoice over my downfall. It's my friend is going to rejoice that he has the mitzvah of bringing the halacha. V'zuhi tefillas, it must be somewhere, Rabbi Chanina ben Doisa, shelo ekash v'dvar halacha. Ve'etzrach shiach lahachsireni v'yismachu b'yichaveri shezach latzina. And that is the mistake, says the Chassam Sofer, Rabbi Abba. Rabbi Abba didn't daven shelo ekash v'dvar halacha. Rabbi Abba daven Rava She'ema Milsa de Tiskabel. Rav Abba wanted to allow his viewpoint to be accepted by somebody else. That was the mistake of Rabbi Abba. There is no desire. A person should not have a desire that other people should accept his viewpoint. What do you care? What does it matter to you? You came to a conclusion. You're doing the right thing. That's very nice. Dafka that somebody should accept. As long as you're doing the right thing, that should be good enough. By the way, the Chassam Sofer says this in many, many places. If you look in number 9, it's Chidushim HaMasechta Beya. Chassam Sofer says, Yehi Rava de'ema milsa de tiskabel. Nirali de tuva kamash malan. You know why the Gemara is telling me the tefillah of Rabbi Abba? The Gemara is teaching me a big chiddush. De'elav oirach ara lemevad hachi. It's not proper to daven this. Ela asay dvarim l'shem pailan. V'dibar b'hem l'shman. V'al ta'aseh atar l'sgada. What do you care if someone else accepts your opinion? Ve'ein zeh doim l'tfilas. Reb Nechunya ben Akana on brachais. Mashenkein hachal l'chvayde. Says the Chassam Sofer, al kein siba haya de'achichu alav l'neskav dvarim. And therefore this was a reason, this was the cause that they laughed at Rabbi Abba. And the Chassam Sofer says on Chumash also. That's the meaning of the pasuk. Loisane al-riv lintais. Don't get involved in machlokes to force your opinion on someone else.
What about you cannot say that they also got embarrassed because they didn't listen to Rabbi Yehuda?
Right, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Maybe that's really listen to.
Maybe that was the punishment.
That was the
That
first
was the
step.
punishment. Yeah.
I hear.
They listen to.
We don't find that Rabbi Yehuda was his Rebbe. He just, he avoided
told him
him.
not to go.
He was the one
that's
that's
some
what
relationship.
He was the Rav there.
I hear.
He was the Rav of Bavel.
And he paskened like that.
And that's what caused everything from the beginning. Not to listen to the Torah.
That's
And what would have happened if Rav Abba had the correct
the correct tefillah. They wouldn't have laughed at him.
correct halakha? They're laughing at him, but he
Maybe some sort of saying he didn't have the siyata d'shmaya to get to the right conclusion. In other words, the attitude, the desire should be not to impose your point on someone else, but rather you should be able to defend
The truth.
your own position. Comes Rabbi Gamliel, and Rabbi Gamliel says, one second. Rabbi Yeshua says it's a reshus. I say it's a chayva. But now, what's everyone going to suspect me? Everyone's going to suspect that when I, get up in the presidium of the Nesias and tell Rabbi Yeshua to say his opinion, and then basically don't allow him to sit, everyone is going to accuse me of what? Lintais. Everyone's going to be accusing me of lintais. Everyone's going to accuse me of having the improper attitude.
No, not to
So, Rabbi Gamliel says the following. Nichnesu bale treisen the Beis HaKnesses. So, Sir Nachronim say, why are Tamil Chacham called bale treisen? Like the Chassam Sofer says. Because the job of the Talmid Chacham is not lintais. Is not to take the Raimach and the Cherev and to impose their view on someone else. You don't like what they're doing? If there's a mitzvah of teichacha, that's a different story. You don't agree, so you don't agree. You don't have to impose your view. The job of the Talmid Chacham is dafka lehagein al atzma. You got to protect your own viewpoint. If you feel this is the correct way to live, the correct way to act, the correct halacha, you have to be ready to defend it. You have to be able to defend it. The job of the Talmid Chacham is not the balei ramachim, not the balei charovim. It's the balei treisen.
The Gamliel meant the objective students.
So Reb Gamliel said, "Look, I buy into this business. I agree, right? Reb Gamliel is the one in Shas who calls the Talmidei Chachamim Balei Treisen. I don't believe you find anywhere else any other Tana giving this name. You find two places. You find it in Bechayros, Reb Gamliel said Nichnesu Balei Treisen, and you find it in Brachos, Nichnesu. Reb Gamliel is saying, Nichnesu Balei Treisen. I accept that the job of the Talmid Chacham is what? Al Laisana Riv Lintais. His job is not to turn. But I have a different job in life. And my job is Nahoig Nisiyascha Biramim. From Gamliel held. This was in the aftermath of the Churban Bayis Rishon. Churban Bayis Sheni, right? And the Gemara says in Gittin that Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai he asked for three things from Vespasian, right? He said, Tainli Yavne v'chachameh. Vishoshilta, Rabbi Gamliel. Why? Why did he ask for these three things? Because Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai understood for the unity and the continuity of Klal Yisrael, you need position of the Nasi. And the Nasiim were all descendants of Hillel. The Midah they specialized in was Anava, right? Hillel Hazaken, right? L'olam yehei an v'san Kehillel. Rebbe, Mishames Rebbe Bala Anav. Shem Gamliel was one of the 3 Anavim. Ram Gamliel also was known as a tremendous Anav. What happens if you look in later on in the Gemara, Daf Chav Ches, when they depose Ram Gamliel, and they tell Ram Gamliel, you're out. So what did he do? He started his own movement?
No, he's sick. He came to the
Loizaz Mikan. He did not move. He was sitting there, licking the Afar Raglayim. He sat there like everyone else. He didn't say, what? If I'm not going to be the Nasi, so I'm going to start, Rag Gamliel Nickers. No. He sat there in the Beis Medrash like everyone else. Right? The Gemara says, Oisai Hayom. Right? But Oisai Hayom, they taught, very interesting. Oisai Hayom, they taught which Masechta? Idios. On Daf Chav Zayin Amud Aleph in Brachos, what is Idios called? Bechirta. You'll see tomorrow morning. Chav Zayin Amud Aleph. Literally, how do you pronounce Idios? Everyone pronounces this Edios, right? These are the testimonies given on the day that when Gamliel was thrown out of the Nesios. Yeah. So what happened? They added 700 benches, right? They had because Gamliel had a policy called Tamid She'en Toicha Kabara Yal Yichnusu L'Sham, right? But now everyone was allowed entry, and they testified different halachas. By the way, when we say that Idios was learned on that day, it's only the last 3 prakim of Idios, not the whole Masechta. That's what Rav Miller said. Rav Miller, he quotes the Doros HaRishonim. It's only the last 3 times. And also, Oisai Hayom does not mean one day. Oisai Hayom is a 2-year period that began on that day. So on that, what did Ram Gamliel do? He sat there like everyone else until he was reinstated. But the policy of the Nesius was that for the unity of Klal Yisrael, so that right after Ram Gamliel put Reb Elazar ben Horkinus into Cherem, so he was traveling on a boat, and Ba'ama Nachshel Shamayim, right, a big wave came, and when Gamliel realized the only reason they're doing the Hashem is doing this is because he put Reb Elazar ben Horkinus into Cherem. So Gamliel got up and he took a shua. Ribono shel olam, Galoi v'yadua lefanecha, shaloi lechvoidi asisiv, v'loi lechvoid beis Abba asisiv, elo lechvoid Yisrael shaloi yirbu machlekes b'Yisrael. Ram Gamliel acted purely l'shem shamayim, but this minhag, this practice was continued by Reb Shimon Gamliel that we saw at the end of Harius, was continued by Rebbe's son Ram Gamliel, and that's what Rebbe said on his deathbed. Right? Even though Mishameis Rebbe Bal La'anova, on his deathbed he said, Nahoig, Nesiyascha Beramim, Uzroik, Mara L'Talmidim. You got to scare the living daylights out of them. That's what the Gemara says. So the Gemara asks, the Gemara has a kasha. It says you have to be Makari of the Talmud. Says the Gemara, Ha b'farhesya, ha b'tzina. On the outside it has to look like you're scaring them, but when they come inside, it's a different story. On the inside, La'olam yihei amnasan kihillel. Okay, we'll pick it up after the break.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.